set auto-destruct sequence.
It's the time allotted that concerns me.
Recognize Picard, Jean-Luc, Captain. Recognize Riker, William T, Commander.
Maximum warp!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Warp Core Podcast. I'm Urza Master. Joining me as always, Lord Uther and Fert Derby. Gentlemen, welcome back to Starfleet. And we are jumping in with Strange New Worlds this week. The Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail. An interesting reference to Vulcan mythology, if I remember correctly from the episode. And our first look at Captain James T. Kirk, albeit filling in, and the Farragut, which is always cool to see another Starfleet ship. But this week is going to be an interesting one because it really threw a lot of curveballs, I think, and had some, shall we say, interesting flair thrown at us. So, Fert Derby, give us a little background on this unique little episode.
Thank you, Lord Uther and Ursa Master. Yes, the Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail is our latest and greatest Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It was directed by Valerie Weiss, who has one of the most fascinating backstories a Star Trek director of any era or generation in some time. When you hear first about a director in television, you think, well, they went to NYU or UCLA, USC, and they've been sitting there doing, CW shows, episodes of Supernatural, et cetera, et cetera. But Valerie Weiss actually attended Princeton, majored in molecular biology, and she holds a PhD in biological chemistry and molecular pharmacology, and she received a master's in medical sciences from Harvard. So how that person ended up directing not one but two episodes of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, that's a cocktail party question that you pin her over in the corner and said, what happened? She previously directed in season 1 or season 2, Ad Astra per Aspera. She helmed the Una trial episode, if you will. And I'm sure all of you Strange New World fans remember that. Una was cleared and has now a spotless record in Starfleet for following orders and so forth. So that was Valerie. It was co-written by David Reed and Bill Wolkoff. These are experienced Strange New World writers. Just this season alone, David Reed co-wrote Wedding Bell Blues, which was a fun and fanciful episode, the second of this season. And Bill Wolkoff co-wrote Shuttle to Kinfori, which was the infamous Klingons are hunting us, and there's also zombie plant people, et cetera, et cetera. And that was his contribution. And what we got in this one, we didn't get any of the frivolity of Wedding Bell Blues. Instead, we got a tense Star Trek episode. We had a retro look at the Farragut and Kirk's initial brush with the chair. We had the Enterprise getting swallowed, like the famous biblical story there, and so forth. We had Kirk and Lon. Don't forget, she's got a thing for Spock now. She and Kirk shared some feelings when they were teleported back to the early 21st century. We had Mr. Scott being told that we need miracles. So there's a little plant there. And we had Pelia, and I do want you gentlemen to sound off. Pelia coming up with a novel workaround when communications between ships and so forth were there. I have to say, I never thought I would see those moments in a 21st, 22nd century Star Trek. But it was certainly a clever bit in the writer's room for them to say, why don't we do this? And I'll let you talk more about this. But gentlemen, A lot of tension. Again, big effects. Sort of a haunting, tragic ending, if you will. Like, did the good guys really win? So you had emotional stakes there. What were your feelings about Sehlats who chase and eat their tails?
I think this is, again, one of the reasons why Star Trek is so great is it can weave together a really compelling sci-fi storyline. I mean, this had all the best stuff. You know, it had amazing special effects. It had, you know, a scary, spooky, you know, unknown villain ship that just intimidating and had tentacles and, you know, all this stuff going on. And it still had all of the human aspects, you know, Kirk trying to figure out, you know, how do I captain? You know, it had ready room moments. It had Spock and Kirk connecting as like captain and first officer, captain and science officer for the first time. You know, it had a ship on the brink of destruction. It had a ship in terror and in capture. And then it had all of these other moments like that just made you really think about the humanity of space travel and what it could look like if people get marooned. You know, what you have to do to survive, and the real regret, I think, of being that explorer and, you know, fighting for your life just for survival in space. And it's a parallel story, which is amazing. And you could almost miss it, but it's two eras of humanity trying to survive in space, not knowing that they're trying to survive each other, and they're both taking essentially the same steps. And that's that whole moment of, why didn't he shoot me? Why didn't it shoot me? Because it just realized you're doing the same thing they're doing. And what I would have liked, and I think what makes it stronger, but what I would have liked is to see the flip side. Like, did that person report back like, hey, these are humans, you know? And then was there pause, or did nobody believe them, you know? And that's like, by not having that, it makes it so much better, because it makes you ask those questions. And it really does. It does lead you into the next episode, especially because it starts to make you question the foundation of, what are we doing out here, really? You know, what are our true principles? And Kirk, to his credit, for the first time, gets to show off that Kirk we know from TOS, where it's this, you know, I regret destruction, I want to avoid conflict, I don't want to be so bold and brazen, but I'm calculated and confident. We're starting to get some of that here, which is just like, I mean, this is money right here. This whole episode was just like, oh my God, so well told from a character perspective, from a sci-fi story perspective. And I mean, and you don't get Gorn, you don't get Klingons, you don't get any of these, you know, sort of churning eddy type villains. You literally get a reflection of yourself. And that can be just as villainous as anything. And that was just so good.
Yeah, this episode kind of screamed the movie Serenity to me, Firefly Serenity, just the idea of these scavengers. I kind of had that vibe a little bit, maybe even a video game called Dead Space kind of gave me the vibe of that as well. I wouldn't call this a filler episode, but it seems like a setup for what I really think is going to happen when the series is over, because it is doing so well. And the rumors are out there too on the internet of a year one of Star Trek, where Kirk gets the chair of the Enterprise, right? So to me, this kind of feels like a setup for that. I wouldn't mind getting a little bit more of a backstory on this, or maybe a reference in another episode down the line, or maybe it comes back somehow. We at least get the backstory. I know Pelia kind of mentioned it, but still kind of curious. Even it's kind of Borgish in a sense, because they're going out there just consuming everything. So again, I felt like they kind of took Serenity and the Borg and kind of put it together. I never really gave thought, like you obviously did. You think a lot more than I do. To this, parody between the two of them, right? Like that really never crossed my mind. So did I like this episode? We'll get that to when we get to our ratings. I think it served. I think it served its purpose, which was to put Kirk in the chair, show that he makes some mistakes. He's getting closer with the crew, especially Scotty. So I think we're seeing a lot of those things. Because spoiler alert, we're going to see Kirk again in the next episode, I believe. Or I'm getting them all confused because I've watched so many of them in a row. Anyway, liked it overall, but again, I feel like it was this episode was a vehicle.
Guys, I'm getting a dial tone. We need to talk about Felix the phone and hooking it up in there, especially since AOL just dumped dial-up internet a couple of weeks ago, and they held funerals and wakes. Did you ever expect to see the technology you were using in high school to arrange sleepovers and pickups for basketball practice in the corridors of the USS Enterprise?
So
it's a little sticky in my opinion.
It was a bit sticky, but I love Pelia. This character, like I hope they don't kill her off. I hope like whenever she's done with her tenure with the Enterprise, she just like leaves and goes and just does whatever she's gonna do somewhere else, because she's delightful. But how?
I think we're gonna see her in Starfleet Academy. It's just a feeling.
I hope so.
Because she's kind of like Guinan, but on steroids, in my opinion. Because she doesn't take herself so seriously, and nor should she. And I think I almost wish if she would. I didn't mean to interrupt you, by the way, so I apologize.
No, you're good.
I almost wish if she would acknowledge that her sarcasm and humor has helped her survive all the decades when people have passed around her, right? So I have a feeling she's going to go back to Starfleet and then be a teacher. I that might actually help me watch this new Starfleet Academy series, quite frankly, because you're right. She is just what a great character she's become, which again is the other great thing about this show is, like Rebecca Romaine playing Una has just been lights out. So all these characters that are new in a sense have just been they've just done such a great job with them. Anyway,
absolutely. And it's so funny because I have a couple of these old landline phones laying around. I've got I have a rotary, and I have like a Coca-Cola like branded phone and a Green Bay Packer phone. And it made me think, like, if you just had why does she have these just laying around? And the other thing is, like, how does she have all this crap in the Enterprise? Like, where did it, like, how? Like, and why? But moreover, how did they get a dial tone? How did they put together this network? Because I don't, and this is something it's such a weird side effect of like Star Trek is, we all know it's driven technology and culture, and that's how we have some of the things like smartphones today because of the dream of touchpads and things like that. But this actually made me go back and think, I've got a lot of old phone wire laying around. Could I set up my own landline at my house? Just for fun, just to see if it would work. It's like, I kind of want to know how landline phones work. And I've never, ever in my entire life thought that thought. I've never had that question of like, how do landline phones even work? Why would I want to know that or need to know that in 2025? I don't even know that we have a landline phone line cut into our house. Like, I don't think it exists in our walls. Our older houses, when we've had two before this, they both had it because they were built in the 70s and 80s. This is a new build house, so it's like there's no landline phone. I'd have to pay somebody to put a landline phone in my house. It blows my mind. But it's like, why? how does it even like? And I know it's just signals over copper wire. It's nothing amazing, but then to duplicate that in space, how did they manage this? Like, how did they run a bunch of and in such a short amount of time? I don't know. It was such a goofy but kitsch kind of fix that I was like, this is cool. I'm appreciative of what they're doing. I love the whole like cat clock, where it's like, yeah, you were nice and novel at first, but now you're kind of creepy. Yeah, I don't know. As a collector of old retro things, especially, Pelia really resonates with me because there's an engineering spirit to her that, those of you out there who are subscribed to my Urza Master channel have seen. I have a passion for rebuilding old things, making them work again. I'm not great at it, but the cool thing about Scotty and Pelia is that like they take this modern technology and they're just inspired. I don't have that talent. I don't have those smarts, but you can look at some of this stuff and like draw some sort of thing from it and be like, oh, I could do this and this and maybe that would work. And then it does. And it's like, oh, you get this sense of accomplishment. And I wonder if that's what Pelia's like function is she's so quirky and so off the wall innovative. She's driving Scotty to become who Scotty becomes. That to me is like, ooh, that's good. And because Scotty's pretty on the level. Like we see him in the bar in Trouble with Tribbles. He's just like, I'm Scotty. I'm an officer. Don't get too out of hand. I don't make waves. And then he gets into a friggin' bar fight. It's like, oh, I like that guy. And then, of course, all the goofy shit he does in the movies. Like, now we're really seeing where he gets that from. Like, that's Pelia. Scotty, I know the ship like the back of my hand. That's Pelia. That is something she would do 100%. So I don't know. I love this character. Everything they're doing in the show, it just seems like it's right. I'm like, how do you keep getting it right every week, every single week? I wish I had that kind of talent.
All right, and here's my second and final throw out to the group. We are this is the 6th episode, I believe, of 10 for the season 3. So you can start to have a sample size now that you can analyze and do. Of the 6 episodes, we've had Wedding Bells, we've had the Shuttles to Conforee, we've had the archaeological horror prison, we've had Space Adventure Hour. Which character of the ensemble, and they have done a fantastic job of giving us this wonderful crew and so forth, but which character do you personally feel as a fan in this season 3 so far through 6 episodes? You haven't gotten your fill per se. I think they've done a wonderful job of balancing it out. I'm not saying that it's obvious, but which character has not been fully served yet through 6 episodes in terms of your expectation? Like, I wish there were more episodes that were this person forward, or I wish we spent more time with Una, or I'm just curious in terms of it, because you can't please everybody. And you have so many great characters and storylines. You've got Ortegas with her Gorn PTSD. You have Lon coming with Spock. You have Captain Patel and Pike. I mean, you have Mabenga. Like, which character do you think? Christine, with Scorby. So I'm just curious, like, through 6, they've been doing so much wonderful stuff. But in the last 4 or so, who would you like to see maybe they get a little bit more to shine? Scotty, Uhura, who's not being served yet fully?
I think you just hit on the beauty of the show. I can't think of one.
Okay.
So though that's an excellent question, because we see that, especially doing our next gen, which I'm sure everyone's subscribed to, seeing all of our episodes right now, next gen, where we keep asking for, why haven't they done this yet? Or this person is kind of serving the wrong role and blah, blah, blah. They've done it since episode 1. They've nailed it, and spoiler alert, this is probably going to be one of my lowest rated episodes, but it's still great because we have At first, I didn't think we were going to get enough Una this season, and that's changed. So I mean, I just think they keep even. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on Pike's girlfriend, the other
Patel.
captain.
Captain Patel.
Yeah, like we're even getting a bunch of her in a sense because every word that they write matters. Every storyline they're putting together matters, and that's the beauty of the show. So I personally can't think of one.
Pike. I want more Pike, and having seen a couple episodes after this one, I still want more Pike. And I know it's so easy to have a Captain Forward episode, and that's every TOS episode nearly. There's something there that it's like they're not touching on it. And I think it's because we know what happens with Pike, right? Like we know eventually Pike is going to meet, this untimely demise. But I think what is important to me is that we don't lose sight of, that I want them to build Pike up a little bit more. And don't get me wrong, he's got moments, and like Anson Mount obviously is getting lots of screen time, but I just want a deeper Pike episode, and I think we're going to get one. The only thing I'm a little hesitant is I know that like there's still the Goofy episode of the season coming up, and so like I withhold judgment on it, of course, but that's the one I'm anticipating I'm not going to like as much. But when they did the musical episode, they completely flipped the script on me, so we'll see. But that does bring us to the question of Warp Core ratings. And I don't want to give this one a 7 out of 7. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 7 to kick this off. And here's why I don't think it's a perfect episode. I think that it got a little into the weeds in the kitsch. Just a little, not in a bad way. It was good, but it could have spent a little more time on the alien scavengers to make them a little scarier. I don't think it needed to. Again, we talked the economy of words. Like, it did just enough, and it wants you leaving more, which is great. But I think they could have built it up a little bit more. That maybe, maybe making them scarier before you have the whole "why didn't he shoot me" or "why didn't they shoot me?" Maybe some of the Vulcan crew or non-human crew end up in their path first, and they're getting iced. But that aside, I loved this episode. I really did, and it's so hard to like not give every single one a perfect score when they're all written so well.
I'm gonna go 5 out of 7. Just for, again, what you said. The enemy. I mean, there was even a little bit of Captain Nemo or whatever that guy's name was from that awful Star Trek series that started its own parallel universe, multiverse, cop-out, storyline, tropism. Wait, did I say all that? Anyway, I'm going to go 5 out of 7. Again, still a good episode, but, and again, I've seen the other two, so I know it's going to happen, but I'm going to go 5.
Well, see, as someone who came to this with sort of, not the institutional knowledge of the original series and so forth, and some of the early seasons of Next Gen, I look at an episode like this and I'm like, what more could I ask for it? You have unbelievable tension. You have a twist ending that calls into question basically everything, as you say, your foundational beliefs. You have moments that this show in particular has not been afraid to wrap their arms around that, as you say, kitschy or goofy, we're going to plug in rotary phones and call the bridge, and Una's going to be freaked out by a dial tone. Like, the fact that they've managed to balance all that, you've got stuff happening on the Enterprise, which has been swallowed. You have stuff happening on the Farragut. You have the Kirk. I don't know. I thought it was a smorgasbord. I can agree that there's probably a Mount Rushmore peak of sevens, and you don't want to just hand those out like Rod Blagojevich would hand out Senate seats. But this is pretty darn close, guys, to just, in a nutshell, in its own context, this is a pretty good hour of Star Trek. So I'm going to go 6.5. I think, like you say, I think sevens you really have to just absolutely shine. And this one came for me. This one was pretty darn close. I don't feel like there was any box unchecked where I'm like, well, all of that. Although I do like Ursa's point that maybe if we had a little bit more on the scavenger side, then that ending could have landed even harder. But I like seeing the crew. There's the Kirk confidence. What I'm going to do is right, and whether the rest of you believe me or not, I know in myself I can do this. And then there's sort of the Pike thing where it's like, you know, why didn't he shoot me? And what happens if we were like that? And so forth. There's more of a little bit of a self-doubt creeping in. And I really dig it when the crew has to challenge their own assumptions. They're just not like, well, we're Starfleet, we did it right, you know, move on. And this one, like I say, and I think Lord Uther teases that leads us into our next episode. I like the idea of saying, wait a minute, you know, are we the good guys? In moments like this. I mean, with the Gorn even. I mean, the Gorn were an invasive xenomorph type species, and yet the things we learned in hegemony and so forth that, you know, maybe we're part of the problem, you know, in terms of getting into their space and them feeling threatened. So, yes, the ambiguity and the duality and those forth, New Trek is really hitting those notes, something that we weren't able to quite explore in the original series, so forth. So, shades of gray.
Love it. Love it. And certainly as we go forth on this 5-year mission, there will be some more interesting stories to be told, but make sure you're subscribed to Pending Rebrand so you can follow the Warp Core podcast, all our shows, and keep up with all of the latest and greatest Star Trek content on the internets. And until next time, live long and prosper.